What's going on, you guys? Charles here from the Traders Corner. Today we're going to be looking at some trades that I took in this trading day. So let's get started. All right, so first and foremost, what we're going to be looking at is NASDAQ. Now, NASDAQ was definitely my friend today in terms of, the best trade that I had. As we can see here, we're looking at the executions. Again, this is all on a demo account, right? So looking at this executions on the demo account, we can see the trade that I took here on NASDAQ. You can see here I got in, short here at 12,103, right, and got out at 12,038, right? So good little profit there on NASDAQ, and we'll talk about why we were planning that, because a lot of this in terms of our plan for this trade was based on some analysis that we had done before. So that being said, we can reference that here, right? So looking at the NASDAQ and what we saw before we got into this trade, obviously you can see this sharp price action as we're seeing here, right? So as we can see this sharp price action here, and this is all from, we had a bunch of stuff happen basically early in the morning, right? So looking at this early in the morning, we saw this run higher, right? And we saw this crazy wick here on this run higher, which was definitely of note, right? The wick was definitely of note. Looking to see that get filled was definitely something I was anticipating. And on top of that, with the way that we energetically moved higher, I was not needing to see as much in terms of the way of confirmation for us to get lower, right? So as it pertains to entry signals, I have two entry signals. One gives me a bit more confirmation than the other, right? And so this is a case where it's a perfect example of one where I would be more than comfortable taking that entry signal that gives me a bit less confirmation because of what we saw in terms of this sharp movement higher. Because of that sharp movement higher, I'm anticipating that more people are going to get trapped on the buy side, right? And obviously I want to sell. So if there's more people trapped on the buy side, then the higher time frame smart money sellers don't have to do as much to trap more people if they're already trapped enough with this move higher, right? And that's kind of exactly what I was trying to get at there, right? Oop, didn't mean to do that, sorry. So looking at the rest of the trade, right, in terms of we got in here, and then we also had our stop go to, it was 530, right? And that's just, basic in terms of I'm looking at these indices and knowing how much they can move and how quickly they can move within a day, right? I definitely wanted to give it some room to breathe. Now, that being said, I definitely could have taken this trade here and gotten probably a bit of a better risk to reward. But in one, I was not at work when I placed this entry here. Like before all of this happened, I was, at home. So I placed the entry around 8-ish, right? As we started to break down here, that's when I placed the entry and looked for us to get a pullback into this fair value gap as we see here, right? Just set a simple limit order on that, right? And we get filled here. So we get filled on that. And then again, we drop lower. And then really, why did I target where I targeted? Well, again, like I said, I was anticipating that wick to get filled at the very least. But then when I saw that we had that wick and then I looked to the left, what I also saw just to the left of the wick was these relative equal lows here, right? So if I'm thinking about things where the price might extend itself just a little bit further, that's a good example of when it might, right? It doesn't have to, but it might. Now, that being said, we'll see with, I think it's Dow, where I left a lot on the table in terms of a run lower, but it's just all about having a plan, because here's the key with this trading day. Like I said, I placed a limit order, and I did the same thing with my Dow trade as well, and then also my S&P trade, which actually ended up being a loss. I actually two trades on S&P that ended up being a loss, and we'll talk about the last one, why that one was annoying, but we'll get there later. Like I said, I placed limit orders before I went to work. So I needed to have a plan before I went to work. And so, like I said, I identified these areas before I went to work. But the one thing I didn't do before I went to work was set a price alert, okay? So I always like to work from alerts, just in terms of me essentially knowing that I need to go in and I want to, especially when I'm practicing on a demo account, I want to force myself to go in and make that trade in terms of getting out of the trade because I want to force myself to not be greedy. I have a real problem with being greedy. I'm good with kind of the stops side of it in terms of keeping my risk small. I very much understand that, appreciate that, and I don't really have an issue with that so much, but I have an issue more with the greed. So when I practice with the demo, I'm trying to force myself to not be greedy, right? So set the alert and then I manually close it out. And like I said, this is all on the demo. So that's what I did here, but I didn't set the alert. So yeah, I had to, while I was at work, remember, oh God, I need to go in and put this alert in when I got entered, because when I got entered, I went in, checked everything, was like, okay, is everything where it needs to be, yada, yada. And then I realized as I'm doing all that, I don't have any alerts. So I set the alert and I was able to quickly set the alert while I was at work because I knew exactly where I wanted to get out anyway, right? So then we got out and that was that trade. And that's the only trade I took on NASDAQ. Now looking at Dow, again, like I said, Dow is where I definitely left some on the table, right? And so here is a case where we got a bit more confirmation, right, from our entry signal. And we just ended up using a market order to get entered here because it actually like I live like 5 minutes away from my office. So I literally, and to be honest with you, like I don't have to be in at 9. Like I work in one of those companies where it's like, come in at 9, come in at 12. Like we don't really care. Just get your work done. Like literally I was at work and people were showing up for the first time that day. So it's like, yeah, I was like, I'm going to take a little bit of time. I entered on the market order here, right? And essentially here again, we had identified some relative equal lows as an exit. And here we were identifying these relative equal lows over here to the left, right? We have these, and then we could really throw in this low as well. And so that's where I was interested. And again, use that market order to get out. And here's where you see the not so great side of using a market order to get out, right? Because I wanted to get out, you know, just below this low, but I really got out just above it, right? And so it's a little bit annoying, but it's profit. And again, like I said, I definitely left some on the table, but again, it's about not being greedy and being happy with what I took, right? Definitely could have got back in as well. And we'll talk more about could have got back in when we talk about S&P. So S&P was a bit annoying, used a limit order, the same exact entry as Dow Jones, but using a limit order on this one. So I used the limit order here, right? Got entered here, and then we took me out here, right? So got taken out at 41075. So here, right? So got taken out here. I was way too tight with the stop. That is very clear to me. I don't know why I didn't say 111. It's obvious. Like 5 is basically right above my entry, so that's way too close. So I should have gone to at least 110, and that really means 111. So that's a lesson in and of itself right there. But then the next lesson really is this idea of making sure that, you know, you understand what you have already set in the market. Because I essentially, before any of this move happened, so as we woke up in the morning and as we were looking at, you know, how we could shape up for the day, we had seen this move higher, right? We had seen, the first thing I had seen in the morning was this tick higher, push down, push up, push below these lows, and start to tick higher. But I saw it left a few prints of relative equal lows, right? And when I was looking at it, and when I set this entry here, that ended up being a loss as well, very quick loss. When I set this entry that ended up being a very quick loss, we were essentially trading here, and we were having some issues continuing to trade higher. Now, I wasn't saying that we had to trade lower right then and there, but I was anticipating that if smart money, however you want to call it, decided that they wanted to push the market higher, but they didn't have enough moment, they didn't have enough people trapped on the sell side to do so, then a place where they could do that and catch some people is actually here, right? In terms of getting below this low. And then when I looked at, these lows over here, and then when I looked at these lows and I pulled it out just a little bit to the left, right? And I looked to, can't see that price anymore. Eesh, because of what's happened so far in terms of the market moving, but we'll use the 5 minute to look at it. So we saw here another set of lows, right? And I was essentially saying, well, They could definitely run these lows, but what would also be likely as well is them to just pop these lows as well to try to go higher, because you get these lows and then you get these lows too. Everybody and their mom is going to be trying to sell. Everybody and their mom is going to be trapped into these sells, right? Now me, thinking all that, being Mr. Smart Guy, I still took a loss, right? So that being said, it is a little bit frustrating, I'm not going to lie, but it is trading, and that's what happens, especially because you see here as we run lower, we set this low of 5.4, and then we push higher, and then we end up ticking higher for basically the rest of the day. And now, you know, we didn't just pop back above this high, but definitely could have gotten some decent profit out of this, and, you know, more than accounted for this loss here. All right, so that was a trading day. I hope you guys enjoyed it, man. I hope it provides some value to you guys, and join us again next time. Thank you.